my name is Wago. Today we're going to talk about music theory, how to use basics of music theory, and then how to move around and use that basic music theory to use tempo. What is tempo? Tempo is a series of pulses and timing that allows us to feel a certain inflection or beat. Now, in the Western era, most of our inflection is on something called common time, or 4/4. The whole reason for having that common time, that 4/4, it allows us to feel a pulse. Now, let's talk about what time is in music. When we're talking about time, we're talking about divisions. Now, I hope you can see that. I hope my marker's dark enough. If you have questions, put in the comment section. We'll get to those as well. But what we're talking about today is this basic fact. When we subdivide rhythms, almost everything can be subdivided by 4, which means if you know how to play in 4/4, gee golly whiz, you can play in almost anything. The note that I have on the board is called the whole note, and the whole note itself can be any number of beats, but as we aforementioned, in that common time, which is called 4/4, it's a time signature that dictates that there are 4 beats per measure and that the quarter note is going to receive the beat. So when we have that quarter note receiving the beat, what we're talking about are divisions that come down to these beauties. The way we get good at seeing these things is to actually just start writing them, feeling them, experiencing them through the eyes. Oh, am I backwards? Experiencing them through the eyes of just the pulse. So when counting, you can even say stuff along the lines of 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's a great way to count out common time. What happens is when we have a measure and we see that these are divisions, we take our staff, which is simply 5 lines, where you can put different notations. Some of them have tone or frequencies, like or some of them are just beats. I guess we could talk today about the percussion clef. If we draw our double bar right here, I just like to put a little bar here, fill in, and then put another one right next to it. This will always tell me, or anybody who's reading this, that this is going to be that drum notation. Now, after that, I'm going to put my time signature on the middle line. When going through there, that's what the common clef for a percussion reader would look like. Common time here would dictate that we would have 1 note, 2 note, 3 notes, and 4 notes. And each one of these being a subdivision of a fourth. Meaning when we have this, our whole note, we cut that whole note into 4 equal sections. Which is really kind of cool, because when we're doing this, we're talking about divisions. Now, all of our divisions generally have something called simple meter, or they have something called compound meter. It really is something to be playing simple meter and then compound meter and then have a couple things that work over the top of it. Now, what we're talking about are general genres. A genre in music is something like rock and roll, blues, reggae. Everything will have a pulse of some sort of nature. With that pulse is going to give you the feeling of 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we internally feel that pulse, we keep an internal metronome. Now, what I'm going to show you right here is called a metronome. What we do with this is we let it go back and forth. There's a little weight underneath and a weight up top, and the further away these 2 weights are, they counterbalance each other. So when playing something in any sort of practice mechanism, we would most definitely put our beat or our pulse at a constant. This gives us the ability to start feeling these mechanisms of tempo, start feeling these mechanisms of a beat and pulse and pattern. And what it turns into, when you can do a couple different patterns over the top of each other, it really becomes melodious. Especially if you start putting in like these little variations of wavelengths called notes. So right here, what we have on this stave or staff are 4 quarter notes. The divisions that we have are really kind of fun because we can then use any of these, divisions of these notes to dictate 2 other notes. When we have these notes, this is actually, it looks exactly like a quarter, but it has a quaver or a flag off of it. With that whole note, when we did this, cutting it into quarters, if we simply divide it again in equal measure, we get 8 pieces to the pie. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Therefore, when we connect these eighth notes, we're not only giving it the 1, 2, 3, 4, because a half note is worth 2 beats and a half note is worth 2 beats, meaning there are 2 half notes in a whole note, and there are 4 quarter notes in a whole note. Aloha, welcome. If you have any questions about what's going on, just the basics and music concepts for counting tempo. When we do this, you can see that each one of these eighth notes gets beamed together. These top beams are what we call tying together with a flag or a quaver. They turn into beams. Those are the worst eighth notes I've ever drawn. When we go to the next one, we still have eighth notes, right? But these aren't called eighth notes. They're called 16th notes because, frankly, we put another eighth note in between them, and because there's 2 eighth notes combined, we then put a double beam. So if you ever see notes that are tied together in this fashion, you are going to be counting the eighth note, of course, 1 and, because this is 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. When talking about these beats or pulses, if I keep the quarter constant, these units are the quarter note. When I hear that, I know that that's the downbeat. So everything I count starts with that. When learning new types of music, like a Creole beat, Cajun beat, let's say like a Middle Eastern tabla kind of beat that has subdivisions, that's a little different because it gets into different subdivisions the way we talk about them. But being able to count this in the Western air for our downbeat is how you learn other rhythms. So if you are a mandolin player or a drummer or anybody that's learning a new type of beat, this is definitely what we have to learn in the beginning to get into the idea of learning a different time signature. So here we go. We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got these linked together. There are 8 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But we're playing the downbeat and the upbeat. So we have our downbeat. These are our eighth notes. Now I'm not going to keep going up and down, but I'm going to put a little inflection on the hand. This definitely starts to give us a rhythm, doesn't it? After this, when we're drawing out our next grouping, we have 4 of these together, and then we put a double beam, and then 4 again, double beam. It's going to turn each and every one of these into 16th notes. Now, the whole fun of music at a certain point is when you get the concept of this is going to be 1 and 2 and. Well, yeah, then 2 and is here, 3 and is here, and 4 and is here. But now with the other eighth note, in the Western air, we call them E and So you have 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and the whole point of this is we get down to it. It allows us the ability to start doing something really, really fun. When we are playing, let's say, a grouping or a measuring inside of a bar of 4. So this is going to be 4-4, which is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. In these beats, if we were to play this over and over and over again, no matter what we play, we would have a very specific rhythm. So if we are playing something like a oompa, or like a, how about 3-4, which simply means when we play common time, we can play common time as one of the functions of 3-4. But when we play 3-4, the inflection is put on the 1, and we only source 3 of those beats. So even though it's still kind of feeling like 4-4 with our metronome, it turns into the beat or the inflection 1, 1, 1. So it cuts that 4th beat out, but the quarter note is still the constant. I hope that makes super sense. So when we're doing this, you can do it a number of ways. Oh, I dropped my pen. We can do this a number of ways. My favorite thing to do is like view it through the eyes of like percussion. Try to do one on one hand where you just have like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. When we're doing this functionally, it gives us the ability to see that we could have subdivisions. This is where it gets interesting with music, and I just wanted to define it this way. If we're playing a stave on the percussion clef, and you see that you've got your first, second, third, and fourth beat, and we're in 4/4. When we get rid of that and we move it to 3/4, common time is no longer considered common time. It still has a common beat, which is why it's called common time, but it turns it in something called a waltz, which has this pa, 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 pa. This is what we would consider feeling this measure if we did the bass on the 1 and we had a constant hi-hat going. That would be something like 1, 2, 3, boom, 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 boom. Now what's fun about this is you don't really have to keep it with just the quarters. You can do Does that make sense? You can use different subdivisions. Now, it doesn't just end here with these quarter notes, these half notes, and these whole notes. After 16th notes, we have 32nd notes. And simply, we just take the same 16th note and we add one more beam. By adding a beam, we let the listener or the reader know that we are going to be subdividing that pulse even quicker. Now, they don't change the way we name them. You still call them 1E and a, but they are just faster. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. Do you see how we could get different beats in between all those? Now, this is where it really makes me happy whenever we get to these pulses and movements, because each one of these has an equal and fulfilling rest. And in most times of expression, when we're talking about rests, we're talking about using them in correlation. We're not going to put rests on things that we're not playing when we're reading. We only put rests on things when we're trying to change the rhythm pattern that was already defined. So if we've got a bass here, and then let's say on the 3 and, because we could count these as eighth notes, let's say we put a bass on the 3 and as a quarter note, and it goes over to this. Now this is on repetition. It's going to keep going over and over and over again, right? So we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. If that's too fast, just slow it down with me. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1. It allows you the ability to see how to play these together. What I do when I'm on the kit or playing and trying to explain beats to one of my students, I'll break it down. Do the one that's the easiest first. Maybe the hi-hat, 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom. And what happens with this writing? It turns this into the feeling of the aforementioned eighth note. Even though it's on the 1 and then the and a 3, technically, when they're put right next to each other, the and a 3 is right here. Beep boop. So the whole idea behind this is when you play different meters and rhythms, it allows you to open up your brain to see these as different compound measures or meters. That's kind of what we were getting into over here. When we're counting 3, 4, yeah, we could put 1, 2, 3 and have 3 beats divided amongst one measure. If we were to put these as eighth notes, we have just increased the beat. We no longer have 3, 4 because we're not influencing quarter notes. We are influencing eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and. It still has that pa, but now it's like a double field. It's not pa, pa, pa. It's like pa, 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 pa. If you want it to be. You could also go pa, pa, pa. You could put the inflection on any note you want. When we do the inflection, it kind of looks like this. Don't get confused with a tenuto of any sort. These are just fermata tenutos. They're there to make notes longer. You do see them, but not so often in percussion. Generally, you'll just see a hold on it. But the way we see it is like that greater sign. It'll tell you where your inflection is. And the reason why I'm showing you this is it's kind of fun to realize that all of our meter is based off of these. Whether we're playing it as a rest or we're playing it as a tone, all of these seem to have the same interaction. This is our whole rest. This is our half rest. All right, I should put rests up here. This would simply dictate that you're not going to be playing a note or a pitch. It is the lack or devoidness of a constant pulse. When we come down to our quarter notes, Q-U-A-R-T-E-I. I'm not great at drawing. I am not an artist. I do apologize about this. Sometimes you see them just like this. Sometimes you see them like this. Either way, I do it like this. That second one kind of looks like some lips sticking out or something like that. Quarter note rests. And then after that, we have 8th note rest. We have 16th note rest. 32nd note rest. 64th note rest. They just keep going. You could go to 128. The whole idea behind this is when we see that 8th note that we played before, we had something like this. It had the note head and then a little flag. In America or the Western world, we call it a flag. Over across the pond, you call it a quava. Hey, what's up, some guy? Right on, man. I hope you dig it. If you have questions, stop me when we're going through. I'm just going through the basics of music theory on how to count time, how to put vocabulary in your music vocabulary bag, so the next time you're talking about time with somebody else or you're trying to work on a song, you can go back to this concept. There is always going to be a foundation in musical awareness. So, since it has a single flag, it has a single dot and then flag going up. Of course, when we do this, a 16th note would have 2 of them. When we have a 32nd note, guess how many? Yo bacha. We're going to have 3 of them. See, as I said, I'm not a great artist. I'm horrible at the drawings. I wish I was better. And you know what's funny, too, as an educator? I understand all I need to do is sit down, take a class, and then draw for 5 minutes a day. But I don't have time. I just love music. That's what I do. Anyway, these are all our rests. So if we were going to be playing something in a meter or a measure and we wanted to say it, let's say we're doing it in the percussion clef, we could do this. Throw our clef in. I'm drawing this way bigger than I normally do. It's weird. And then I'm going to throw in my time signature. How about we do just common time? In fact, when you don't write a time signature on any of your staves or measure, going to be 4/4 common time, but I'm going to write it in anyway. 4/4. No need to put the divider. The middle line always will work sufficiently, unless you want to be creative and put it aside. Great on you. You should see some of Zappa's handwriting on his original stuff. Very cool. So in this one, when we're going back to common time, you could have a multitude of these, but 4/4 is the most common, so that's why it's called common time. Almost all music in the Western ear is in this. It's like saying, hey, let's play a blues groove, and it's assumed it's going to be 1/4/5 unless otherwise said. Cool. Reading drum notation isn't too terribly bad. Up here, we've got the crash. Right here, we have the hi-hat. This is one of the most predominant. This is the #1 predominant piece on the unit. Actually, the #2 besides the snare. After this, the top line is going to be the ride, which is another cymbal, cymbal, and then these are cymbals, but they come together. So when we're playing the hi-hat, you have 2 cymbals which go up and down with a foot pedal. That's the hi-hat. When you play a ride, it's generally off to the left. If you're a right-handed set, crash is generally up here. You also have other different pasties like a splash and different types. But yeah, I generally put them on. Yeah, this one's our ride, and then down here we've got our snare. We've got our bass kick, bass, and then over here tom, and generally tom. You have a high tom, mid tom, and then low tom. They're also called toms and floor tom. Many people call them different ones. Long story short, doesn't really matter what you call them at a certain point, just as long as you know how to do your rudiments, which is a whole different video. Check out the channel, it's up there. So when we're doing this, we'll play this. This is where one of our toms is. This is our high tom. This is our mid tom. And then this is our low tom or our floor tom. The next middle line is the snare. Sometimes you'll see the snare right here, which is fine too. Sometimes you'll have like a cowbell or something right here, superfluous. If you have something on your kit that isn't included in the basic 5 kit, like toms, cymbals, hi-hat, bass, it changes. And then, to my knowledge, all the bass goes on the bottom too, the bottom line and the bottom space. I've seen it both ways. So when playing in common time, if we wanted to do just the basic beat, we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. I like to put my ands because whenever I'm playing drums, I always do subdivisions so I could feel where to do inflections or do little fills. And then when we're playing here, let's put the 1 and 3, and then our 2 and our 4, and then we've got a consistent hi-hat. I generally don't draw lines unless one of my students is super proficient at reading, and then I'll connect these either by a dotted out or I'll put them up. When you play line, any notation above the middle line, you put the stem on the left side. When you play anything below the middle line, you put it on the right. And then the middle line can go either way. It can go up or down. And because I got kind of close there, I'm just going to put it up and up. Yeah, right there. Whenever you want to repeat a measure, you put a double bar and then 2 dots. Make sure you do it on both sides. That lets the reader know that this is a repetition. When we're doing a basic beat, this is boom, clack. Boom, clack, down, Black Betty, bam, ba-lam. It's going to be the same type of feel for almost all things. When you want to make little derisions in this, that's what I'm talking about. There's no need to put like a rest here and a rest here, but if I wanted to like get rid of this beat all together and have boom, clack, boom, clack, boom, I would do 1 and 2 and 3 and. The bass now is on and. I'm going to put an 8th note right there. And if I'm not used to reading that, the measure before might have been different. So I might just put like an 8th note rest right there just to let the know that my brain doesn't work. Just to let the percussionist know that it's a different feel. And when we do that different feel, we would have it, I don't even have the drums on. So it'd be like boom, clack, boom, clack, boom, clack. Boom, clack. And the whole feeling of that, it changes. So if you've got boom, clack, 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 clack, boom, clack, boom, clack, boom, clack, clack, boom, clack, boom, clack. You could do something where you're going in 4/4 and you kind of break it down into a halftime feel beat. So much fun. Anywho, that's how to read a simple measure. You can do all sorts of stuff in percussion. And then the whole reason for doing this is to explain why beat and meter and time and these rhythms are kind of fun and important. I had always wanted to play jazz and bossa nova. Learned how to play it on stringed instruments, made a lot of fun. And then when I would go to jam sessions, because I played that type of music, I met drummers that were really good, that took 5 and 10 minutes to talk story with me about drumming, sit me down on their kit, show me exactly how to do it, and then show me what I was doing wrong and what I could work on. Through the years of like 10, 15 years playing with phenomenal drummers, I understand now a little bit more about the necessity to know rudiments and then to sit down with your practice pad and really go at it. Also, to be open to different time signatures and different ideas, whether they make sense or not. And I know that seems weird, but I love stuff like Frank Zappa and Spyro Gyra and Sun Ra. So a lot of the stuff that I listen to doesn't really have that kind of push and pull that the Western ear does. In the Western, we're very mechanical. We're how do I say this lightly? The music that we exhibit in the Western ear is basically exhibited over the way that we view our deities or our theistic ideas. There's a central theme. That central theme is God. Everything underneath that goes back to that central theme. Well, in music, the central theme is you start a piece, you create it, you go from A to B, and then it's done. It has a time limit. There are pieces that are devoid of this, but in most Western ear music, it is very specific, cut and dry. This. It's very rigid. And then when you think about Eastern music, it's more open and free to interpretation. And it mimics the way that we view our two different paradigms of reality. Westerners view it more mechanical, shape of our reality, like the human body, the way we do our healthcare system. It's all a mechanical function. The way it's done everywhere else is more of an amalgamation. You are part of it rather than made from it. And that's kind of the way that I view music now when I'm working with Eastern and Western, and I'm trying to combine both the kind of concepts. So I've got a better understanding of myself and music, not only in the world externally, but internally. That's just me, though. So as far as music goes, allowing yourself to feel different types of signatures will help you play 4/4 or help you play 3/4. The two most simple parts of that would be common time. Now, we do have something like 2/2. We do have 3/4. We do have 4/4. These are the most simple of these. Whenever we start talking about moving to I guess you would call them just compound meters, we start to move into different types of structures of sound. And that's what I want to lay out for you here. I hope we can see it, have fun with it. If you have questions, throw it in there. I see, hey, Sam. Hey, Rachel. Yeah, spiral gyro. So good. This learning experience, no, it's paper percussion. Cool. Percussion club is fun. What I would say with anything is you have to have a music notebook unless you're just a genius. I'm not. I need to write things down. As soon as you write it out, it makes way more sense. Write out all your rests. Write out all of your note values in that book. Write out the 5 lines on the staff. Put your percussion clef on there. And then put out your time signature. And if you start seeing those lines as being bass, cowbell, miscellaneous, Zildjian splash, chimes or whatever, and then you have your snare, tom, 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 and then your ride, hi-hat, and crash, you start to visualize that when you're playing music. So when I'm watching a drummer and I'm like, boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, ba-doom, ba-da-doom, ba-da-doom, boom. If I notice that when they're doing something, they're just, I keep it straight. I don't do the ba-da-doom, ba-da-doom, boom. I just do like, boom, boom, ba-da, boom, ba-da. Boom, boom, ba-da. If I notice them doing something more on their hi-hat hand, because I'm used to reading that clef, I go, oh, it's a little busier. And then I hear, what is everybody else doing? What should I be doing with that bass down low? Because I'm the percussion section with the drummer or the hand percussionist. And then think, what can I do to stay out of their way, but still add a little something to the genre? And that's where practicing the practice of practicing comes in. Oh, jeez. So, write all these out, do your common time stuff. I'm sure it'll come along. Time meters and music. Hey. And I'm just going to write these on up here. So, the simple meter that we have can be considered like 2-2. Actually, here, we need to have 2-4 as well, or else this won't make sense. 2-2, 2-4, 3-4. The thing about 3-4 is 3-4 is a simple meter, but when we double that, it becomes something called a compound meter. So the things that we need to talk about that are super, super important, just besides the value of the rests, just besides the value of the notes that we play on the stave, is talking about something called the value system, whether it's a duple, or it's a tuple, T-U-P-L-E, or it's a quadruple. Now, these seem like big words. Yeah, I get it. But the whole idea is we're talking about 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 1, 2. That's what duple does. So when we're doing with duple meter, we are dealing with a beat that's consistent with these two. Quarter, quarter. No matter how you divide these, it's going to be that. The division of that beat, we could also do the division as eighth notes if you want, because that is the next obvious thing. There are 2 eighth notes inside of there. When we go to tuple meter, we're talking about triplets. So a simple triplet meter would be something like 3-4. So 2, 2, 2, 2, 4. These all work. 3-4 tuple meter. The notes that we use are still going to be the same, but we divide them further. So when we're playing this, you're still going to have quarter notes because you're dealing with the quarter on the bottom. You know what I mean? But there's only going to be 3 of them. And when we do the division of these, we're also allowing ourselves to see that the division can also be done as eighth notes as well. So eighth, eighth, eighth. When doing these divisions, we are seeing that you're just doing the most simple calculation of, oh, gee golly whiz, what goes into this one? The next one that we would have would be a simple quadruple. When we're talking about this, folks, we're talking about 4-4. This 4-4 is the most simple, and this is what all music is based off of. By counting these quarter notes out, we're giving ourselves equal temperament for that whole note. That means that when you have a measure, that measure will last as long as it should in a given time signature. If we were in 12/8, the whole note would be exhibited of the 12. So when we're playing in these are our simple meters, and then the simple quadruple, when it's broken down, if you haven't already guessed it, you betcha, it's gonna be the eighth notes again, except for now, we're not gonna have just 3 of them, we're gonna have 4. Ba-da-ba-ba-bow, yeah! So the next thing we're gonna do is talk about the compound. When we play a compound duple, you can take 2-4, 4-4, and you can add those together. And what does it come up with? Well, what is a single kind of like measure we could do for a duple? How about compound meter is 6/8? We're essentially taking 3/4 and we're doubling it. If you took 2/4, the numerator could stay the same and you could put the 4s there and put 2 more divisions through it. If you want, and I know this turns into math and it gets really kind of weird and boring, but it's in practical application too. Reading the staff, trying different genres, and as soon as you hear something in like a bossa, you hear those rhythms, and that gives you the ability to be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. That's fun for polyrhythms. At least it is for me and nerding out. If you're like me, you might like this. Yes, different accents on 6/8 and 3/4, but you could keep them consistent. You can still have that pop 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 2 3 1 2 3. When we're doing this compound meter, what we're doing is we're turning those duple and tuples from our simple, which are these, simple, there's no E there, well, and then we're going to compound. Compound. Here, let me circle it. How much fun. Black on black. Here we go. When we do a compound duple, we're looking at 6/8, so we're going to write it as such. This one, we would have our dotted notes. The reason why dotted notes are very interesting and weird, what happens when we take a quarter note and we put a dot after it, or a quarter rest, and we put a dot after it? We name them as such. Quarter note rest. Dotted quarter note. If you were to take a half note and put 2 beats up there and say, gee golly whiz, what's the half of 2? 1. What is 2 plus 1? That is what a dotted half note is. So if we did a half note that was dotted, it is equal to a half note that is tied to a quarter note. So rather than counting this as 1, 2, 3, you would count it as 1, 2, 3. Do you see how just seeing a dotted half note as having 3 beats is great for 3/4? A dotted half note is a whole note in 3/4. And it's a better way to write because you're not reading all these silly half notes. Every line has a stem on it at a certain point. Cool. So when we're talking about these, the subdivision that we do of this compound duple 6/8, we're going to be also making these into eighth notes. 1, 2, 3. But do you see how now our eighth notes are divisions of the eighth, still as a single beam, but we have 1 and 2 and 3 and. That fits in there. These are divisions in compound meter of 6/8. So practical application, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and don't want and don't want and don't want and. These are putting a rest in between. And 1, 2, and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. If I did here, we'd have 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2. Do you see how the divisions for that pulse, boom, boom, are a part of that? So even though everybody else could be playing 3/4, you could play 6/8 all day long and be thinking in this type of compound meter. It just means you're playing your simple meter twice as fast. Not too far away from the truth, really. And then when we go to our simple triplet, we had 3/4. So a compound triplet, gee golly whiz, let's compound that. What is that? It's 9/8. So when we put our 9/8 here, we use the same notes that we were using before. We just don't have 2 of them now. Why? We need to have them to fill 9. Boom. What does that mean? Every single one of these can still be divided. What would you be dividing it by? You betcha, the 8 note. So we would have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. When we have these 3, it gives us our pulse. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and. When we go through the pulse through this, you can have multiple different movements. Quadruple. So when we do compound, one of the best time signatures to play in as a musician is 12/8. Especially on drums, G Galliways. Because when you go through it, hey Shelly, how are you? Let's see, Allison guy. Oh yeah, fun. Yeah, for sure. Agreed. Being able to play through 12/8 isn't too terribly hard. When you're trying to work it on percussion or G Galliways, you're doing a song that requires you to feel that. It might be very awkward to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But overall, man, some of the weirder music I listen to is chock full of that. If you haven't heard Frank Zappa and you're over the age of 18, go check out Dog Breath Variations off of the Orchestrical album called Yellow Shark. You will love it. Now, we can put these in compound simpler metals, like we could do 12/4, you could do 9/4, you could do 6. Actually, you could even make them harder by dividing them by different notations. But there will never be a division of like 12 or 5. Actually, that's not right. There will never be a division of something that doesn't make sense for this reason. And this is the whole reason why I did this video, so you're not scared of trying alternate rhythms, and then the idea of staying in common time and moving to 3/4 and then gradually moving into like 6/8 and then experimenting with 12/8. With the music that you watch and the things that you do, you should be able to, over a period of 3 or 4 years, tap into a couple different genres. You don't have to spend a lot of time on heavy metal or bossa nova or rock and roll or flamenco just to understand the basic concept. So no matter what your instrument is, try to put it forth that you want to take 5 minutes a day to learn something which is new, a new genre, and I guarantee you, subconsciously or consciously, you're going to add that back into your expression. And there is nothing finer in the world than watching somebody develop their own mechanism for their own style. Well, groovy, y'all. This is how to write out all of your meter. The whole point of this is to see them as simple or compound. And the truth of the matter is, simple is compound. If you can play simple, you definitely can play compound. The whole reason for doing this is for subdivision. So, aforementioned, if we were doing something that you are practicing with your hands, these percussive elements of tapping your chest or going over to a piano, they work out in the long run. Let me see if I could throw this. Ooh, yeah. If I got this here. If I was playing something in like 3/4 simple, all those can be defined by saying, well, yeah, it had a pulse of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. But when we started combining like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you start seeing that the eighth notes are part of the melodic structure. And if you're wondering what that was, it's a C major with a B in it. It gives you a C major 7, a dissonance, major 7th, or a minor 2nd. And we're allowed to use it to get to one place to another. All of them are arpeggiated. If you put a note right before, you get a C major 7. This is a major minor chord. If I put the D back in there, or the F sharp back in there rather, we would get D major 7. But we're not here to talk about tonality. We're here to talk about rhythm. The whole idea behind that is no matter what you're doing, you can influence any note on any instrument. And percussive, playing like bongos or a djembe, a kit, if you will, that we explained earlier. These are the things that you use as the rudiment. So the whole idea of doing this is when you see these notes and you're able to count them out, they then get combined into different types of note structures. Where'd I put my pen? Oh, jeez. I lost 3 pens already. Who's the goof? Me. How would I explain this? We can see these as different variations of simple or compound. Either way, each one of these has a different note. So, how about this? Let me just show you some notations. Now that's in my head. Great. Does anybody have any questions about what we covered thus far? I got a couple minutes here to do wrap up and take a couple questions. But have I seen the Eastern Music Circle where each measure is a different number? Yeah. That Eastern was developed at the same, actually before, some would say, but before the Stoics did it. Most of the music we have comes from a very, very specific point in time. The cult of Pythagoras, if you will. Let's see here. All right. Very, very cool, man. Let's see here. Music notations. Let's see some music notations and symbol guide. Let's see how that works. In a lot of these, like I watch a channel called Sight Reading Drums. I love it. I do the practice exercises there. I'll put a link in the description. I'm sure you're going to want to see it eventually. Some of the things that go over the top of these are the aforementioned articulations. And then those are really above and beyond. But usually when you see a stave like this, let's do just our treble clef. So we have our G clef. I'm going to close off this with a bar or a meter. And then I'm going to throw up some notes. I'm just going to throw an A note right here. Whenever we see this A note and there is a dot above the line, this note is called a staccato note. When you see this staccato marking, that means that the note that you are playing is going to be short and detached. When you see that, there's another one which is generally right below, and it looks like a little teardrop. This is called a statissimo. It means it is shorter than short. What you had with a short note, when you're playing that short note, it would be, here's a largo note, or a legato note. It's long and flowing. And then a staccato note, and then a staccatoissimo. Super, super short. In fact, you want to cut the note and delay it off and put a dampener on it if you are playing that piano. When we're doing our other types of notes here, we have something that makes it just a little bit longer. Underneath the note, if you put a beam, no matter where you are, a darkened beam, this incites something called a tenuto, and that tenuto is going to make that note just a little bit longer. Now I know these sound silly, but a portata, P-O-R-T-A-T-T, is the same thing, but we put a dot right underneath the note and right in between that big beam. This means you're going to do the same notation for the tenuto, but it's going to be just a little bit longer. We also have, I'm just going to erase the whole thing. You also have one called a marcato. It's a type of tenuto. That's the one of the aforementioned that I said don't get it confused with your accent. When you have an accent above something, that means that you put inflection on it. So if we wanted to have this tenuto, and we wanted to have that inflection, let's say we had a note right here that we wanted to put the inflection on, you might see them like there. So it'd be like, ta, ta. See how this one is a quarter note, but what I played wasn't quite a half note. It wasn't quite a quarter note. It's more like a dotted quarter note, but not so much. It's not even that long. Where's my thing? Cool. After the marcato, oh, you know what? I should have written these out, but they're in real time, aren't they? So why not? After the marcato, oh, we've done this, 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 and now this. When we go down, we do, what's the next one? Got the accent. Oh, we should just define this since we're here. When you see a marking like that, that is called legato. Legato is the opposite of staccato. This particular one is called a slur. because it goes from one note to another. When you have an expression that uses the same thing and goes to the same note, this is called a tie. They're both legatos, but one goes to a different note, the other one goes to the same note. The way I remember it is ties in a straight line just goes to the same note. There's not many of those that I do in music. Like, I'll never talk about how cows eat grass or little boys are doing fine, apparently, or face. Those are things that you come across, you're like, oh, cool, but there's just so much to learn in music. Why not just give yourself a vocabulary that makes sense? Don't confuse it with cows and such. Okay, and then the last one that I wanted to just put out here that's very important, because this is a big one for conductors, this is a big one for singer-songwriters that like to have a little ad librium or have a little bit of, what's the word, I don't know, just a little bit of yeah, just a little inflection. It's called rubato. This is a fermata. A fermata allows you to hold the note longer than expected, or hold it out indefinitely while a conductor holds you out. You ever see an orchestra and they're like, when they're doing that, they're talking about a fermata. The conductor or whomever is directing the music has the ability to hold those notes out longer. Very, very cool. So that is a fermata. These are all called articulations. We use these articulations over the top of these notes in meter to give a certain feeling. The next thing we're going to talk about is just going to be the what was I going to say? The ornaments. The ornaments are basically something that you'll see inside of these. Over the top of any drum line, you might see something like this. That simply means that you're going to be shifting your note into like a roll. This is known otherwise as a trill in music. When you do a trill, you can see it above the stave, where it does something like this. It looks like the Charlie Brown's hair. or it has the word trill with a little dot after it to say that it's a vocabulary word. Very close to that is a mordent, which is the same thing as a trill, but we put a little line through it. And the whole reason for this, you want to make it a little bit shortened. So, M-O-R-D-N-T, mordent. Actually, I think it's E-N-T. When we do this, it's just a little bit shorter on these notes, so you won't have that brrr or ha. Gives a little more oomph. This one will be like ha, very lift. Well, after we go through there, those other pieces that we call, oh, here, I should put this up. Ornaments. Just like, I guess, the holiday ornaments. It is spelled the same way. I just don't view it the same way. After that, we have one of these gorgeous numbers. Can anybody tell me what this is? This is where you get a turn. It basically lets the note do something on its own at the direction of a conductor. It shows you that the note is being done forwards. And then if we wanted to do it backwards, it would be called an inverted turn. Yeah. Very cool. Whenever you have two notes that go from one portion, like this F note, all the way down here, and then maybe going all the way up to the F note on the top line. If you wanted to go between these two, and you had them making a little bit of vibrato note and a little bit of slide at the same time, this is called a glissando. Wonderful. And you'll generally see it like this. It'll just have the little crazy line between the two notes, and they will write gliss right there. G-L-I-S-S. Glissando just takes the note, slides from one point to another, and then goes through it. Very cool. In music, whenever you see music notes on the stave, all the music notes will always be the exact same size. Every time. When you see a note that is not the same size as the aforementioned note, like this little eighth note on the B line right before the C, this is called a grace note. When you have a grace note, you are playing through the note, meaning All music is music that is formed in step. Every one of those notes is inside of the key. If I went outside of the key and did a grace note, it would be like doing da ha 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 ha. The notes move in fashion. You could write them as 16th notes, but if you write a melody that is standing alone and you want to put another improvisational note in there, it's called a grace note. They often help you get from an uneasy melody, which doesn't stay within the diatonic 7, and help you move chromatically through notes to that note so it does sound good. Those are called grace notes. You can also call it an apertura if you want to. The whole idea is one comes before the note and it moves through. Another name for a grace note is the appogatura. Whenever you see notes like these that are stacked, they're still on the stem here, right? But they're stacked together. You might have something which is called your rolled chord, which means each one of these are played together. And when you play them together, each one of these notes, roll chord, are going to be rolled. You're going to see them as being a full chord, but you're not hammering it out as one thing. You're moving into it, whether forwards or backwards. It'll be notated the way that where the top line is. And then I think after that, the last two that we should talk about are just the long trill. Earlier, we talked about it like vibrating using this, right? Well, we also have something called a trill, which allows us to hit a T, R, and then do that same thing and extend it. That trill allows you to take that note, like this note, and be like, till it decays on its own. If you're doing it with a stick, great. If you're doing it with your voice, you kind of just fade out. And then the other one that is used mostly or predominantly with like stringed instruments or with a voice is called tremolo. Tremolo. What a great word that is. Reminds me of some sort of pomegranate. Anywho, when we're doing a tremolo, it's generally between two notes and it's these little functionary bars. When we put them in between anything, the tremolo allows us to see that either this notation with the tremolo or this little here is going to be a transition piece between the two where you're like, you go back and forth between the notes and the meaning of it. You'll see a lot of tremolos in a lot of like Jimmy Page and Trey Anastasio from Fish. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about just dynamics. When dealing with dynamics, we're talking about a feeling that we use with the articulations, with the ornaments, which allow us to do different things to those notes, and then the time and or duration that those notes last. So if we're doing something and we're using some sort of marking, we're doing it in a tempo. Well, we could go over this all day long, but these markings that are up top, slow, we would call it something like largo, something that's moving at almost a snail's pace. There are other ones like adagio, which is a little faster than largo. We've got andante, then moderato. Moderato is about 80 beats. That's generally a good thing to practice in. Learn something in about largo, 40 to 60. Play it moderato, and then if you can, move it up to like 120. 120 is going to be like allegro. In fact, you'll hear a lot of sonata forms being called allegros, an A or something. The reason why is because it's just faster than slow. 120 is our walking pace, our running pace. Usually the human heart as an adult beats anywhere between 50 to 70, 60 if you're healthy, I guess. And then double that is about 120. Well, that's rock and roll, my friend. When we're doing this, they go pretty fast. The fastest of which that I'll ever play at is called presto. If you think about like Flight of the Bumblebee, other songs that just move through these pulses, that would definitely be presto, presto, presto. And then dynamics. Dynamics simply refer to the volume unto which you're doing it. The main ones that we do are called piano, forte, and then every other one of these is a different derivative of it. We have something with the piano, which is soft. And then we've got pianissimo, which is very soft. And then we have PP, which is pianissimo, which is super soft. And, you know, you won't find a textbook that said put super soft in it, but they describe it as very, very soft. Well, that's redundancy. That's silly. This is super soft. You could barely hear it. PPP. When we go the other way, right in between there, right in between soft and loud, we have MP, which is going to be medium soft. It's a little bit louder than soft. Now, you're going to have to gauge what these are for whatever particular piece of music you're reading or writing or listening to, but these are them. Those are these. This is going to be the loud forte. Right after forte, we've got mezzo forte. Actually, is that it? Oh, no, hold on. Mezzo forte is medium loud. That's right, they both go together. And then we've got forte, which is loud. You have to have something right in between the soft and then the loud, I guess. So after we do this, you would guess it because we have PP, pianissimo. We have forte, fortissimo. This is louder than loud. I would say very loud or getting louder, depending on how your loud is. And then we have three Fs. Believe it or not, there are some musics that have the 4, but I don't really play those. This one's called fortissimo for the double F. So this one is called fortissimo. And I know these seem very, very loud, but this is very, very loud. As I said, it's redundant, so I just call it super loud. Yeah. And then after that, we have a couple different markings which you don't see often in standard music unless you're reading generally piano music, classical music. Although it does have it in some of the Zeppelin books I read. This next one that we're gonna do, how about we put it right here underneath? This one we have is called the piano forte, which is just being a softo loud venture. Oh, thank you.
And your student is outside.
Oh, okay.
Aloha.
Oh, I didn't think they were here. Aloha to you. So after this, we have our piano forte, and then RFZ is going to be our riffenzorando. This basically means that we're going to be doing it a little bit louder than our soft loud. Now, I know these are two contradictory terms, but the idea means that if you could have a gentle touch doing staccato notes but still give them a little attack, that's what we use these for. To let the reader know that you're going to be putting down a little bit of pressure, but not enough to make it a long-standing, dynamically loud note of these meters. When we do our next one, this is actually one of my favorites. I was thinking about getting a tattoo of this. SFP is going to be our sofforanzo. So we've got our forranzo, right? But we don't have it so loud. This one basically is going to be a swelling and a moving and a louder dynamic than our forte is going to be. So we're going to be using the stofforando. When you see this above a note or above the stave, while reading it, you know that the notes that you are going to be playing are going to be loud. Depending on what your next marking is and or the dynamic of these notes, you might find it very awkward to play like a 16th note very, very fast, very, very loud. But we put that in the notation so you just know where to go through these. Loud and it's pulsed. And then the only two other ones that I really wanted to talk about after all these, and remember, you're never going to fall into these. You're generally just going to fall into these. If nothing else, you'll generally always just use pianissimo and piano. I would say mezzo piano. Remember when we use the word mezzo, it's just meaning medium. It's lighter than that. And then lastly, when we're doing the two dynamic markings, which really make a lot of sense, this one's called a de crescendo, and this one's called a crescendo. This means to gradually get loud, and this one means to gradually get softer. This covered probably about 50% of the material that is necessary for knowing how to do basic articulation and reading in any clef. Whether you're doing in the percussion clef, reading just non-tonal notes, or you're reading it in the clef of the bass to read the low notes, or the treble clef to read the high notes. All of this is applicable through these meters. Taking one of these concepts and practicing it for 5 minutes each day will go so far. And I guarantee you, if you are playing the drums or you're playing the piccolo, it does not matter. Reading music notation is where it's at. Because once you see different concepts out on paper, it changes the way the brain thinks. Anyway, thank you for letting me pontificate about the beauty of music. If you enjoyed this, thumbs up, subscribe. If you didn't, I'm sure there's other stuff out there to do. Check out my channel, subscribe if you want, and then starting October 7th on Tuesdays, become a music member at the 2-tier level. I think it's like $4.99. Show up every Tuesday, join the group, ask questions, and then have fun learning the basics of music theory just like this. Aloha to you. Thank you for being here. Hey, some guy. Thank you. It's good seeing you the other day, too. It was fun. Shelly, if you're still here, aloha to you. Rachel, thanks for the grub. And I get the privilege of teaching a student right now. Aloha to everyone.